Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Joe Davis, Southern New Hampshire University, CJ 202, discussion 3-1. Okay, today we're going to go through the discussion for this week's assignment. This presentation is going to be a little bit more of a lecture about the topic rather than walking through the methodology that it takes to answer the question. So, okay, break down the questions. Same thing as always, teamwork. There's a statement vital to the criminal justice profession, and that does not change when it comes to the completeness of a report. For this discussion, you're supposed to determine two positive and two negative aspects of having other members of your organization assist you with the report. The key to this is there really isn't a section in the book or in the resources. If you watched the earlier video, the welcome, we went through that. So what you have to do is kind of look for book bits and pieces where you think you can pick some knowledge out of it, and then you're going to have to do some thinking on your own. The Module 3 overview does provide a couple of areas, and I highlighted that in the welcome. Okay, so here are some suggestions for positives. Include follow-up information that may be newer or revised from previous interviews. I'm the primary officer. I go out there and interview the victim of crime, the witness of crime, because we're not doing interrogations. These are interviews, and they recall what they can recall. Depending on the event, people are very upset. If it's a bank teller that's had a gun pointed at him, if it's somebody that's seen a fatal accident, even an injury accident, it's traumatic, okay? And so what happens is we go out and get the best information we can, but then a detective goes back, an investigator later, and does a follow-up interview. That's going to require a supplemental report. Or other officers maybe go to the neighbors and see if they saw something. So maybe they have different information. So my point is that people will remember something. They'll talk to somebody. They'll go out and look at the scene. They'll re-inventory their property and realize what they lost. So newer information. Okay, and if you're that second officer taking that report, you might, frankly, officers go, oh man, I got another report. This isn't it. I don't want to go do this, blah, 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 blah. No, you have to look at it that you're part of the investigative team. My job is to go out there, get the best information I can, get the victim witness to talk to me and tell me all they can think of. Okay? The second thing, positive, could be correct errors or mistakes in previous written and witness and victim statements. People just flat make mistakes and they realize it later. One way to help people with time is to ask them if they were listening to the radio, whether they were listening to the television, something where there's a time marker. And you can say, well, what program was on? What time does that program come on? Maybe they went in and realized they told you they were watching it, but it had ended. Okay, that would be some. Maybe they thought they had locked the doors and then they realized they didn't. They came back to get their glasses. Who knows? Okay, so honest mistakes. There are X number of people that will lie to you, frankly, and that is that they call and say, oh yeah, my car was stolen. Was there anything in it of value? No, no, no. Just dirty hamburger wrappers. And then they call back in 2 hours. Oh, I had a fur coat and I had diamond rings. Yeah, right. Okay. The next and the last four positives are supplemental reports represent the coordination and culmination of a team activity. So, no matter what the people tell you in the follow-up report, it's absolutely important to the max that the officers writing the supplemental reports make sure that the case numbers are correct, that the victim witness names are correct, that the serial numbers, if that's what it is, but that it's absolutely correct and that it refers in some way to the original report. It may be that all you need is to list the report number and then the title of it, which these go on to a pre-printed form. Or it could be that that's your first sentence. I was dispatched to talk to Mrs. Jones. She has additional information about a residential burglary at her home. Next paragraph. Mrs. Jones told me the following, and then you write it down. Okay, so there are some positives. Some of the negatives can be that there can actually be conflicts or discrepancies in the information between or among reports. The officers taking supplementals do not always get to see the original report. It may be taken the next day. If everyone's together, like in the scenario that you have in the practice video, that's much easier because the two officers can take a moment and talk. Did you find out anything new? Nah, I didn't, Joe. I didn't find anything. Yeah, Joe, I did. That blah, blah, blah is what really happened, those sorts of things. But what can happen, does happen, is there are discrepancies in the reports about day, date, time, factual occurrences, direction of travel. That's catastrophic for the investigation. You got to clean that up. Okay? Timeliness. The follow-up information may be dated and discovered too late. Someone doesn't call for a fairly lengthy period of time. If it's a day or two, of course that doesn't make any difference. But depending on the severity of the crime, frankly, if it's a vandalism with no witnesses, somebody came by and or a theft and they stole my pink flamingo off my front yard, and there's nobody that saw anything, and then a year from now someone says, "Oh, they stole my flamingo a year ago." Well, yeah, you're going to take the report, but no, no. Okay? A lack of a thorough follow-up effort by the follow-up officer, and that's what I think I just said earlier. If you go out there, you have to treat it as though this is the axe murderer, and I won't bore you with all the war stories. Shortening it as much as I can. Call of a man passed out in a car in front of a supermarket, drunk, 10 o'clock in the morning. Deputy goes out. The deputy's going to be a nice guy. The man has groceries. He's going to throw away the things that are perishable because he knows they're going to perish in the hot car. He's not going to tow it because he's being a nice guy. Well, when the deputy picks up the bag, the bottom falls out and there's 2 kilos of cocaine in it. Not a bad stop, but my point is you got to handle every call as if you knew there was an axe murderer at the end of that call. Okay? Last is incorrect information. Perhaps a lab test wasn't correct, and that's where the follow-up disagrees, again, a discrepancy basically, or it could be an omission that the follow-up officer thinks a particular lab test was run and refers to it when in fact it didn't. So it all goes back to teamwork and coordination. And that's what this last part of the discussion board is, your response to your peers. You can read this. This is another area that some of you miss on. Take a couple minutes, read these things over. Okay, I hope that helps you with discussion 3-1. Let me know if you have questions. And of course, keep those cards and letters coming.